I found a clause in my scholarship agreement stating that if I'm removed for non-academic reasons, the university owes me triple my total tuition. They threatened to revoke my scholarship yesterday. I was a full-ride scholarship student at a private university, 4 years, $280,000 total value. I came from nothing. My mom cleaned houses. This scholarship was everything to me. The agreement was 47 pages long. I was 17 when I signed it. I read every word, every clause, every subclause, every bit of fine print. It took me 3 full days to read it all. My mom asked why I was taking so long. Because I need to understand exactly what I'm committing to, I told her. She smiled, proud. You've always been careful, mijo. That's good. The scholarship covered everything. Full tuition, housing, meals, books, even a monthly stipend of $500 for personal expenses. For someone like me, whose mother earned $28,000 a year cleaning rich people's houses, this was a miracle. It was the difference between going to college or working in a factory for the rest of my life. I spent 4 years doing everything right. Every exam, every assignment, every project. 3.9 GPA, research assistant in the computer science department, 3 papers published at academic conferences. One of those papers on optimization algorithms was cited 47 times in its first year. My advisor, Dr. Mitchell, told me it was exceptional for an undergraduate student. You have a bright future, Daniel, he used to tell me. You could go to any graduate school you wanted. MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, they'd all accept you. But I also built something else, something that wasn't in any curriculum. During my junior year in my dorm room, I started building a software company, a simple app that helped students track assignment deadlines. The idea came from my own frustration. I was juggling 5 classes, 2 research papers, a part-time job at the library, and I kept missing deadlines. Nothing major, but enough to drag down my average. I used calendars, reminders on my phone, sticky notes everywhere. Nothing worked perfectly. One night during winter break of my junior year, I was at home in the small 2-bedroom apartment my mom rented in a neighborhood where the sound of sirens was part of the nightly soundscape. She was working the night shift, cleaning offices downtown. I was alone with my laptop, and I thought there should be a better way to do this. So I started coding. Not in the university computer lab, not using any special equipment. Just me, my personal laptop that I'd bought secondhand for $400 with money I'd saved from my scholarship stipend, and the free Wi-Fi from my mom's apartment. I coded for 18 hours straight that first night. The app was basic at first. A task tracker with smart notifications that learned from your patterns. If you always did math homework at night, it would remind you in the afternoon. If you procrastinated on English essays, it gave you more aggressive reminders further in advance. I called it TaskFlow. Simple name, simple functionality. I tested it myself for the rest of winter break. It worked. It really worked. For the first time in my college life, I didn't miss a single deadline. When I returned to campus in January of my junior year, I showed the app to some friends. "This is awesome," said my roommate Marcus. "Can you make me an account?" "Sure," I said. That night, I built registration functionality. By the end of the week, 15 people in my dorm were using it. By February, 200 students on campus were using it. By March, 1,000. By April, 3,500. And not just at my university. Students were sharing it with friends at other schools. By May, we had users at 12 different universities. During the summer between my junior and senior years, I worked on the app full-time. My mom wanted me to get a summer job, something that paid. "We need the money, mijo," she said. "Bills don't stop." I explained what I was doing. "Mom, this could be big. Just give me this summer. If it doesn't work out, I'll get a full-time job after I graduate. I promise." She looked at me with those eyes that had seen too much hard work, too many struggles. But I also saw something else. Pride. Hope. "Okay, mijo, I believe you." I spent that summer improving the app. I added features, integration with learning management systems, group functionality for projects, analytics that showed students their productivity patterns. The app became not just useful, but addictive. Students depended on it. By the time my senior year started in September, TaskFlow had 50,000 users at 25 universities. By October, 100,000 users at 35 universities. By December, 200,000 users at 40 universities. And then it happened. In January of my final year, I received an email. It was from a tech company called EduTech Solutions. They wanted to buy TaskFlow. Their initial offer was $2 million. I almost fainted. $2 million. My mom earned $28,000 a year. This was more than 70 years of her salary. I negotiated, not because I knew what I was doing, but because I Googled how to negotiate a startup sale and read everything I could find. I told them the app was growing exponentially, that we projected 500,000 users by year's end, that other companies were interested. They weren't, but they didn't know that. They came back with $3.5 million. I said I needed $4 million. It was a round number. It sounded right. I expected them to say no. They said yes. $4 million for an app I'd built in my dorm room. I signed the deal in February February. The news hit the university website in early March. Senior student sells startup for $4 million, read the headline. There was a photo of me in front of the main campus building. I looked stunned, which made sense because I was absolutely stunned. The university president tweeted about it. Proud of our entrepreneurial students. Daniel Rivera represents the best of our community. The admissions office put my story in their marketing materials. See what our students can achieve. For 1 week, I was a campus celebrity. Professors I'd never met stopped me to congratulate me. Students asked me for advice. The campus newspaper interviewed me. I always knew something like this was possible, I told them. It just takes hard work and a bit of luck. My mom cried when I told her. $4 million, mijo. Is it real? It was real. More real than anything we'd ever experienced. You don't have to clean houses anymore, Mom, I told her. You can retire. I can buy a house. I can take care of you. She shook her head. First you finish school, then we talk about houses. Then, exactly 9 days after the news came out, I received an email. Meeting required, Dean Walsh, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Subject, urgent discussion. I thought maybe they wanted to congratulate me in person. Maybe they wanted to talk about a donation to the university, something I'd be happy to consider after graduation. After all, this school had given me everything. Without this scholarship, none of this would have been possible. I walked into the dean's office at 10 a.m. sharp. Dean Walsh was there, sitting behind his large oak desk, but he wasn't alone. There were two other people. A woman in a dark blue suit introduced herself as Rachel Morrison, University Legal Counsel. A man in his 50s with glasses introduced himself as Dr. Stephen Chen, Director of Technology Transfer. Sit down, Daniel, said Dean Walsh. His voice was cordial but tense. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I sat. My hands were sweaty. What's this about? The dean cleared his throat. Daniel, first, congratulations on your success. It's truly impressive what you've accomplished. Thank you. However, we need to discuss something important. Something about ownership of your company. My stomach sank. Ownership? Rachel Morrison, the legal counsel, leaned forward. Daniel, when you signed your scholarship agreement, you also agreed to the university's intellectual property policy. Do you remember that? Vaguely, I said. It was true. I'd read about intellectual property, but I'd assumed it applied to academic research, things done in labs with university equipment. She slid a document across the table. It was a copy of my scholarship agreement, open to a specific page. Page 23, Section 7, Clause D. Any invention, creation, or intellectual property developed by a student while enrolled at the university using university resources in any way belongs to the university. I read the words. I read them again. I didn't use university resources. Dr. Chen, the technology transfer director, spoke. Daniel, you built this app in your dorm room, correct? Yes. You used university Wi-Fi. Well, yes, but you used university electricity to charge your laptop. That's technically true, but you used the university computer lab on several occasions, didn't you? Our records show you logged in 34 times during the 2022-2023 academic year. Yes, but not to work on TaskFlow. That was for schoolwork. Rachel Morrison smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. The problem, Daniel, is that you used university resources while developing intellectual property. According to university policy, that gives us ownership rights. My heart was pounding. Are you saying the university owns TaskFlow? Dean Walsh folded his hands. What we're saying is that the university is entitled to a substantial portion of your company. We've consulted with experts. Given the extent of university resource usage, we believe the university is entitled to 70% of the proceeds. 70%? My voice came out higher than I intended. That's $2.8 million. You'd keep $1.2 million, said Dr. Chen, as if he were being generous, which is still a substantial sum, especially for someone of your age and background. I stared at them. I built this myself. Every line of code, every feature. I spent countless nights working on this. I didn't use university funds. I didn't use university equipment. I used my own laptop. But you used the university ecosystem, said Rachel Morrison. Your initial users were students at this university. You used the university's reputation to build credibility. When people saw you were a student here, they trusted your app. That's absurd, I said. That means anything any student creates while enrolled belongs to the university, only if they use university resources, said Dr. Chen. I used Wi-Fi. Everyone uses Wi-Fi. Dean Walsh raised a hand. Daniel, I understand this is upsetting, but we have to protect the university's interests. We've invested $280,000 in your education. It's reasonable that we see some return on that investment. My scholarship wasn't an investment, I said. It was merit-based. I earned it. Rachel Morrison closed the folder in front of her. We have two options here, Daniel. Option 1, you sign an agreement acknowledging that the university owns 70% of the proceeds from the TaskFlow sale. You receive $1.2 million. You graduate in May with your scholarship intact. We all remain friends. And option 2, her smile cooled. Option 2, you fight write this. You take this to court, which is your right, of course. But if you choose that option, we'll revoke your scholarship immediately. You'll owe us $280,000 in back tuition, plus interest, plus fees. And you'll spend the next few years in costly legal battles that you'll probably lose. The world tilted. They couldn't do this. They couldn't just take everything from me. You can't revoke my scholarship. I haven't done anything wrong. You're not in academic trouble, the dean agreed. But your scholarship includes clauses about cooperation with university policies. If you refuse to comply with our intellectual property policy, that constitutes a violation of your scholarship agreement. Rachel Morrison pulled out another document. You have until Monday to decide. That gives you 4 days to think. Sign the agreement or we revoke the scholarship. I stood up. My legs felt weak. You can't do this. We can, said Rachel Morrison. And we will. Monday at 5 p.m. Bring your decision. I left that office shaking. Not from cold, but from rage and fear mixed together into something that churned my stomach. I walked across campus, past students laughing and chatting, completely unaware that my entire world had just collapsed. I went back to my dorm. Marcus, my roommate, was playing video games. Hey man, how was the meeting with the dean? Terrible, I said. I didn't want to get into details. Not yet. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I pulled out my scholarship agreement. The same 47 pages I'd read when I was 17. I started reading again, this time looking for anything that could help me. Page after page of legal language, clauses about academic performance, student conduct, facility usage, and then, on page 34, section 12, clause F, I found something. If the scholarship is revoked for reasons unrelated to academic performance, disciplinary violations, or failure to maintain enrollment status, the university shall pay the student triple the total scholarship value as compensation for damages to educational opportunity and future earning potential. I read that 3 times. Then I read it a 4th time. Triple the total scholarship value. My scholarship was worth $280,000. Triple that was $840,000. They were threatening to revoke my scholarship over intellectual property. That wasn't academic performance. It wasn't a disciplinary violation. It wasn't failure to maintain enrollment status. If they revoked my scholarship, according to Clause F, they owed me $840,000. My heart started beating faster, but this time not from fear, from something else. Hope? Excitement? I wasn't sure. I took a photo of the page. Then I Googled intellectual property lawyers near me. I found one who specialized in startups and university disputes. His name was James Park. His reviews were excellent. Helped my startup navigate a complex IP issue with our university. Highly recommended. I sent an email that night. Dear Mr. Park, I'm a student at a private university. I recently sold my startup for $4 million. The university is now claiming they own 70% based on their intellectual property policy. They're threatening to revoke my scholarship if I don't sign. I need legal help urgently. Can you meet with me? He responded in 2 hours, even though it was 11 p.m. Daniel, your situation sounds complex and urgent. I can meet you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring all documentation, scholarship agreement, university IP policy, threat emails, everything. Let's talk. The meeting with James Park changed everything. His office was downtown, 12th floor of a sleek office building. He was about 40, gray suit, serious but kind expression. I told him the whole story. The app, the sale, the meeting with the dean, the threat. Do you have the scholarship agreement? He asked. I handed it to him. He read for 20 minutes, taking notes. When he got to page 34, he stopped. He read Clause F. A small smile appeared on his face. Oh, this is good, he said. What's good? This clause. Clause F. Did you see this? Yes, that's why I contacted you. He nodded, still reading. Okay, let's talk about 2 things. First, their intellectual property claim. It's overreached to the point of being absurd. You used Wi-Fi and electricity. That doesn't constitute substantial use of university resources. If you used your own laptop, your own software, your own time, the app is yours. A court would see it that way 99% of the time. But what makes this even better is Clause F. If they revoke your scholarship over this IP dispute, they owe you $840,000. And here's the key. They can't argue this is a disciplinary or academic performance violation because it clearly isn't. It's a dispute over intellectual property. So what does that mean? James leaned back in his chair. It means they have you in a trap of their own making. If they revoke your scholarship, they owe you $840,000. If they don't revoke it, they have no leverage to force you to sign their IP agreement, and their IP claim is weak anyway. So what do? We go to that Monday meeting together. We tell them you reject their ownership claim. If they threaten to revoke your scholarship, we ask them to put it in writing. Once they do, we've got them. What if they actually revoke it? Then we sue them for $840,000 plus additional damages, and we win, and the publicity will be devastating for them. University revokes outstanding student scholarship to steal his successful company. That's not a headline they want. I spent the weekend in a state of nervous anxiety. I told my mom what was happening. She was furious. After everything you've worked for, they tried to take it. Don't let them, mijo. Don't let them. Marcus finally got the full story out of me. Dude, that's crazy. But if you've got that lawyer, I think you'll be okay. And honestly, if they owe you $840,000 if they revoke the scholarship, you almost want them to do it, right? He had a point. But the idea of losing my scholarship, of owing money, still terrified me even with Clause F as backup. Monday came. James Park and I walked into the dean's office at 10 a.m. Same setup as before. Dean Walsh, Rachel Morrison, Dr. Chen. But this time, I wasn't alone. Dean Walsh looked at James with surprise. And you are James Park. I'm Mr. Rivera's attorney. Rachel Morrison frowned. You didn't tell us you'd be bringing legal representation. You didn't ask, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. James pulled out his briefcase. My client rejects your ownership claim. He didn't use substantial university resources. Incidental Wi-Fi and electricity don't constitute a legal basis to claim 70% ownership. In fact, they don't even constitute a basis for 1% ownership. Dr. Chen leaned forward. He used our ecosystem. Our students were his first users. That's not a university resource, James responded. That's a market. Students are individuals who made their own decisions to use an app. The university has no more claim to an app used by its students than to any other product or service students choose to buy or use. Rachel Morrison crossed her arms. Then I suppose we're going to court, and I suppose Mr. Rivera understands that we're revoking his scholarship effective immediately. James smiled. Not a kind smile. A smile from someone who knows they have the winning hand. Please put that in writing. Dean Walsh frowned. Excuse me? I said, please put that revocation in writing. We want official documentation that you're revoking Mr. Rivera's scholarship for not complying with your intellectual property claim. Rachel Morrison looked at the dean, then back at James. Why would you want that? James opened his copy of the scholarship agreement. He turned it so they could see page 34. Section 12, Clause F. If you revoke his scholarship for non-academic reasons, the university owes Mr. Rivera triple the total scholarship value. That's $840,000. Silence filled the room. Rachel Morrison took the scholarship agreement. Her eyes widened as she read. Then she read again. Her face, professionally composed until that moment, visibly paled. This clause, she said slowly, was designed to protect students who lose scholarships due to university administrative errors. It doesn't say that, James responded. It says any non-academic reason. Revoking a scholarship over an intellectual property dispute is non-academic. It's not about his grades, it's not about his conduct. It's about money, about ownership. Rachel Morrison looked at Dean Walsh. Her expression said everything. If they proceeded, they'd lose. If they revoked the scholarship, they triggered the clause. $840,000. More than likely, additional damages, plus legal costs, plus the public relations nightmare. This is... Dean Walsh stopped. He seemed to be searching for words. This is more complicated than we thought. It's not complicated at all, said James. It's quite simple. My client owns his company. You have no legal claim. If you try to pressure him by revoking his scholarship, you trigger an $840,000 penalty. If you go to court over the IP claim, you lose, and the publicity destroys you. Elite private university tries to steal $4 million company from first-generation student whose mother cleans houses. How do you think that plays in the media? Rachel Morrison closed the folder. She looked at Dr. Chen, who had been silent for several minutes. Stephen, what's your professional assessment of our IP claim? Dr. Chen took off his glasses, cleaned them. Honestly, Rachel, after hearing this, I think our claim is weak. The use of Wi-Fi and electricity is incidental. If he'd used university labs significantly, or university research funds, or university equipment, we'd have a case. But a personal laptop, personal time, personal code, that's his. Rachel Morrison nodded slowly. She turned to Dean Walsh. We need to reconsider our position. The dean looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. What are you saying? I'm saying if we take this forward, we lose. We lose legally, we lose financially, we lose in terms of reputation. The university can't afford any of those outcomes. There was a long silence. James and I waited. Finally, Dean Walsh spoke. We're not revoking your scholarship, James leaned forward. And the intellectual property claim? Another pause. Rachel Morrison was the one who answered. We're also withdrawing that claim. We want that in writing, said James. A complete waiver of any present or future claims on task flow or any other intellectual property Mr. Rivera creates while a student here. Dr. Chen spoke. What do you want, Daniel? What would make this acceptable to you? I looked at James. He nodded. This was my decision. I want my company, I said. No university ownership, no royalties, nothing. It's mine. I built it. It belongs to me. And I want you to leave me alone for the next 2 months until I graduate in May. Dean Walsh extended his hand. I didn't shake it immediately. I looked at him, at this man who had tried to take what was mine, who had threatened to destroy my education if I didn't comply. And after I graduate, I asked. No retaliation? No problems with my diploma or transcripts? None, said the dean. You have my word. Your word isn't enough, said James. We want a legally binding agreement. Drafted by my office, signed by both parties. Rachel Morrison nodded. nodded. Acceptable. Can you have it ready by end of week? I can have it ready by tomorrow. The agreement was signed Tuesday afternoon. 3 pages of clear legal language establishing that the university had no claim and never had any claim to task flow, that my scholarship would remain intact until my graduation, that there would be no retaliation of any kind, that this matter was permanently closed. I signed with a hand that barely trembled. Dean Walsh signed. Rachel Morrison stamped the official university seal on each page. "Congratulations on your success, Daniel," said the dean as he put away his pen. The words sounded hollow, mechanical. I didn't respond. The acquisition closed 3 weeks later at the end of March. $4 million, all mine. Minus taxes, minus James's fees, $100,000, which was worth every penny. I was left with approximately $2.7 million after everything. I graduated in May with my scholarship intact, with my 3.9 GPA, with 3 published papers, with every requirement of my scholarship fulfilled. On graduation day, as I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, Dean Walsh shook my hand. He smiled for the photographers. I smiled too, but it wasn't a genuine smile. After the ceremony, while my mom took a million photos of me in my cap and gown, I sent something to Dean Walsh, a card. I didn't deliver it in person. I left it at the dean's office with the secretary. The card said, "Thanks for supporting student entrepreneurship. Best 4 years of my life. Daniel Rivera, class of 2024. It was petty. It was unnecessary, but it felt good." That night, at the celebration dinner I threw for my mom at a nice restaurant, the kind of place where she usually cleaned instead of ate, she took my hands across the table. "I'm so proud of you, mijo. Not for the money, for how you fought, for how you stood up for yourself. I learned from you, Mom. You never let anyone walk over you." She laughed, tears in her eyes. "I cleaned their houses, but I never bowed my head. That's what I taught you, and it was the most important lesson." The following years were good. I used some of the money to buy a house for my mom. Nothing extravagant, but nice. 3 bedrooms in a good neighborhood where she didn't have to hear sirens at night. I invested most of the rest, following the advice of a financial advisor I trusted. I started another startup, this time with more experience, more resources, more confidence. But the lesson I learned in that dean's office, that lesson stayed with me. Read the contract, every word, every clause. Know your rights. Stand up for yourself. And when someone tries to take what you've earned, fight. Sometimes, buried in 47 pages of legal language, there's a clause that changes everything. You just have to read carefully enough to find it. Clause F saved me. But more than that, knowing my rights, having the courage to stand up for myself, having people like James Park and my mom in my corner, that's what really made the difference. 5 years later, I learned that the university had revised their scholarship agreement. They removed Clause F. They strengthened their intellectual property language. They made everything tighter so no other student could do what I did. When I heard that, I felt sad for future students who wouldn't have the same protection. But I also felt satisfied. I'd exposed a crack in their system. I'd forced them to acknowledge that they couldn't just take what they wanted from students who had no power. I left my mark, not just with a successful app, but by proving that even when powerful institutions try to intimidate you, you have rights, you have options, you have power. You just have to know where to look.